Hello and welcome to Twisted Britain, a podcast on true crime in Britain with a sprinkling of the weird and the macabre. And your host is me, Bob Dale. And I am, as is normal at the moment, just locked in the house, as we all are, I suppose. I was in the spare room just doing the re-recording this evening because we still can't get into the pub. So I hope everybody's well and still happily quarantined in their own little bubbles. Like I say, we're all still at home and we're just kind of getting on with this, really. I will take this opportunity at the start of this to apologise for the lateness of this episode coming out. I've had some, we'll call technological fuckery between smashing my phone screen and my laptop screen deciding that, it just wants to shake and break. I've not got this all done in the right period. But here we are. We have an episode coming out here for you, and I hope you enjoy it. I have this week's challenge script, let's say, in front of me. And I would imagine this is a case that everybody in the UK will have heard of. And in fact, most of you probably remember it happening. It's not one I thought I would have normally covered, but I suppose that's what is the nature of this challenge-based system. Before I go on, I will say I've had some feedback, shall we say, about the new structure of the show. And while I have my thoughts on the way it's going myself, I thought I would tackle it here and now. So we've had some negative feedback, basically saying that people don't like the chats with other hosts. And while part of me is of the opinion that I like them and I'll put them in, that's not the best way to look at things, I suppose. I appreciate that if not everybody wants to hear them, I don't want to put people off listening. So this is kind of what I'm going to do. I don't particularly want to remove the chats as I like them, as I say, and I feel they add a bit to the podcast. So during normal episodes, I will stick out the regular podcast with a heavily edited version of the chat I have with other hosts. And after that episode is released, I'll also put out a mini-sode as such with in a separate episode, so that those of you that want to listen to the full chat can listen to it, and it lets me have a bit more freedom with them, and then people can take it or leave it, whether they like it or not. That being said, at the moment, the Dale household are trying to move house in lockdown, which, as I would imagine you can understand, is a bit of a tricky time. So I'm going to kind of drop the challenge and response theme for the next wee while, and I'm just going to put out a couple of Bob's Twisted Tales, mainly because I know everybody's in a bit of upheaval at the moment. Now that loads of people have different things on the time on their hands, and it's just a bit more time consuming to get the challenge in and to get people on board for having a chat with me. So what I'll do is I'll stick to a couple of Bob's Twisted Tales for the next wee while, and if we can get some challenges going after that, we'll do that. But it just allows me to make sure that we can get an episode out. I hope that makes sense to everybody, and everybody still stays with it and likes it. And so anyway, with that being said, before we move on to this week's challenge, here is my cut down chat with Theo from Spree. Well, hello, Theo. How are you?
I'm all right, thank you. You?
I'm very well, thank you. Thanks very much for joining me to do this.
That's all right. It's my pleasure.
Yeah, and thank you very much for setting the challenge. It was a good one because it was one that I was kind of almost dreading somebody saying fraud to me, because I was like, oh no, this is going to be boring because I'll need to look at bank stuff and I don't even understand my own bank. So
does anyone really truly understand?
No, just when the machine says no, I think that's it. I suppose I should introduce you. You are, of course, Theo, one half of Spree, British True Crime.
Yep.
Do you have what's your tagline for your show? What do you say? What do you tell people it's about when you're asked?
It's just I should really have a tagline for it, because the amount of stuff that we discuss, it's just the terrible things about humanity, including murder, mayhem, and the stupidity of criminals. Probably.
I'll take that. That sounds like your new tagline then. You've pretty much nailed it.
Yes, I'll put that in the Twitter bio.
So thank you very much for sending me a challenge.
Yeah.
And of course the challenge word was fraud. And I went out and, like I said in the episode, I went down the list and went bank stuff, internet stuff. And then I found, I went with impersonation is fraud. and found a wonderful list on a website that rhymes with sticky media of a load of imposters. And Mary, we're going to say Mary Carlton, Mary Moulton, Mary, whatever she wanted to go with at the time, was the one that stuck in my head because I just thought it was a fascinating story.
Mary of the many names.
Was it one you'd heard of, or? Actually,
it hadn't been because like we did one where we covered someone who impersonated Stanley Kubrick, and that was actually quite recent. And then this one's quite an old one which I've never heard of, and it sounds weird to say it, but I was surprised that nobody got murdered. It was good to, like, because of the way that she managed to convince so many people that she was just a German princess as well.
What I like is the what goes through your head when you're all of a sudden just in a lodgings in London. Now, having never been in lodgings in London in the 1600s, I don't know what they're like, but I'm not pushing 5-star for them. But where do you sit in there and go, fuck it, I'm just going to be a German princess tonight?
That is quite a decision to make.
To be fair, I mean, I'm pretty sure I've probably sat in the pub and thought, fuck it, I'm going to be a German princess tonight. But nobody would have believed me.
I'm sure there was many a time where I've been sitting just going, I'm just going to be a German princess. Don't know if I can pull off the accent, but let's give it a go.
I just thought it was a really cool tale when I was reading it, and I thought that you guys would not only... I thought, that ticks the box of fraud, I guess, and I thought you guys would enjoy it. So
yeah, no, she was lying about who she really was, and that's a fraud. Also, like, how many people did she marry? Because that is also a form of fraud as well.
Yeah, bigamy is a good one of fraud. Technically 5 husbands, I think, from memory. So I'm guessing you accept that that's an answer to your challenge?
Yeah, no, I was interested to see where you were going to go with it, and I was like, oh no, that's an interesting angle to go for.
Perfect. That I'll take that every time. Thanks very much, and I'll speak to you soon.
All right, so you see, yeah, great.
Thank you. Love you. Bye.
Thanks. Bye.
So there you have it. Challenge answered. And if you want the longer chat, it will drop on your feed at some point in the next few days. So back to this week's challenge. And this week's challenge, well, it's the first one that's come from a completely unrelated genre of podcast. Well, unrelated to true crime at all. And I know we've had one from 5 and 30 with Ruck, but Ruck's always been a big supporter of true crime, big fan of true crime podcasts. But this one is from another podcast that I've got to know through the Discord community that Twisted Britain has been a member of for ages. You'll find a link to that in all the show notes. So this week's challenge has been set by Tone Deaf, a musical theatre podcast. Some of you long-time listeners will know that I am not afraid to tread the boards myself at Christmas time, and that my other half is a much, much better performer than I am. But so I kind of came across this podcast in the Discord community, and I just put it out to them, would they fancy doing a challenge for me? And luckily the hosts, Warren and Kay, who are a married couple, came back to me and said, yeah, no, that's fine. We'd love to do that. That's great. So basically, Tone Deaf is... Kay is a self-confessed musical nerd, and she's basically trying to guide Warren through the world of musical theatre. And Warren, when chatting to him, said he was a musically challenged spouse, which I can more than relate to. So if you, like me, have another half that's into musical theatre, or like me, are maybe a secret fan of, then why not just hit them up and hit subscribe and see what they're all about. So here is the challenge that they sent to me.
Hey Bob, it's Warren
and Kay
from Tone Deaf, and we wanted to issue you the Devious Challenge. And I thought to myself, well, we're a musical theater podcast, so what can we issue to Bob as a challenge that would fit with the theme of musical theater? And I thought maybe someone dying on the West End, but I think maybe not. How about...
I don't think Spider-Man made it over there,
Oh,
so...
that would have been too easy. But then I thought, well, my wife is a drummer. So how about the word for your murder search is drumstick? And bonus points if you can find someone who was beaten to death with like a turkey leg drumstick.
Yes.
Because that, I think that'll be a little bit harder to find.
Some Ren Fair brutality there.
Yes. Maybe a death at a Renaissance fair. I don't know. I haven't Googled anything, so hopefully that's not what the episode's about. Or maybe. Who knows? But anyway, Bob. Yes, so the challenge is drumstick. Now go do your Google foo and let us know what you find.
We're excited.
Thanks, Bob.
Thank you.
There we are. So now, to be honest, I would have loved the died on stage aspect of this, and I did get the Spider-Man joke in there. But if you'd like to hear somebody talking about a very famous died on stage case from kind of modern times, do check out Seeing Red's episode on Dimebag Darrell. It's a really good one. So, drumstick. Sadly, after all my searching of Renaissance crimes, I couldn't come up with a killed by a turkey leg, unfortunately. But as you can imagine, one crime did keep coming up when you type in any configuration of UK or British crime and drums. And this is the incredibly sad story and almost unbelievable case of Fusilier Lee Rigby. So like I said earlier, not a case I thought I would cover, but here we are. And I hope to do with this I hope to do this with as much tact as I can, and I'll do it my own way of telling the story of the day and the run up to it. Sadly, it does mean, however, more concentration on the perpetrators than I would like to give them. But it does give a context of the lead up to the 22nd of May and outlines the horrific events that saw a terrorist act caught pretty much in its entirety on camera, which I would say probably could have been stopped if authorities had acted previously. So in the afternoon of the 22nd of May 2013, a British Army soldier, Fusilier Lee Rigby of the Royal Regiment of Fusiliers, was attacked and killed by Michael Adebolajo and Michael Adebolawe near the Royal Artillery Barracks in Woolwich in southeast of London. So we'll start with who Lee Rigby was. Well, as I said, Lee was a Fusilier in the 2nd Battalion of the Royal Regiment of Fusiliers, which is an infantry battalion in the British Army, in which Lee served as a drummer and a machine gunner. He was born in 1987 in Greater Manchester, and he enrolled in the army as a teenager in 2006. He went on to do his training at Catterick, which is an infantry training centre, and he was selected to be in the Corps of Drums in the 2nd Battalion. Basically, each battalion in the British Army, infantry battalion in the British Army, has a drum corps, well, except the Scottish and the Irish, who have a pipes and drum corps. And these were historically used to convey orders across the battlefield. And as such, they usually take up the role of kind of cover fire, which is why I think Lee would have been a machine gunner. His first posting was to Cyprus in 2006, to Decalia, which is where I was born. Just a side note there. He was in Cyprus for 2 years before returning to London, where he took part in the battalion's public duties by standing guard at royal palaces. But of course, as all soldiers in the British Army in the 2000s would do, Lee was sent to Afghanistan. He spent 6 months in Helmand province during 2009. And then following his tour in Helmand, he was posted to Germany, and then finally back to the UK, where Lee took up his post as an army recruiter. Alongside his role as a recruiter, Lee also did his regimental duties with the Royal Regiment of Fusiliers at their headquarters, which is the Tower of London. This is where I will leave Lee's story for now. I'll return to him at the Tower of London, but a bit later on. Sadly, I now, however, must turn the focus to a pair of fucking scumbags, and I say that with no hint of humour or irony in my voice, as these two are utter scum, and I couldn't think of any other words that I could use. So, Michael Adebolajo and Michael Adebolawe. The two of them had not known each other for very long on that fateful day in May, and one of them, for sure, we shall say, was rather more committed to the cause. Adebolajo was born in London to a Christian family who were of Nigerian descent. In his early life, he was a Christian himself. He attended school in Romford, and it wasn't until he was at university in Greenwich, when he was studying sociology, that he converted to Islam. According to Ajam Chowdhury, a radical Muslim cleric, Adebolajo was converted to Islam in 2003 and was linked with the outlawed Islamic group Al-Muhajirin, which apparently had targeted him while he was at university. In 2006, Adebayo was arrested outside the Old Bailey during a protest, and in the following years, he continued to attend meetings and demos that had been organised by Alma Hajaroun. And at this point, it could be argued that he wasn't really fully radicalised, as he was recorded in 2009 saying, "Don't be scared of them. Don't be scared of the police or cameras. You are here only to please Allah. You are here for no other reason. If you are here just for a fight, please leave our ranks. We only want those who are sincere to Allah. Purify your intentions." Yet, only a year later, Adebayo was arrested in Kenya along with 5 other people. He was travelling with a British passport under a fake name, because I can't read that full name out. I'll just say a fake name. They were arrested by the Kenyan anti-terror unit and were suspected of travelling to try and train with Al-Shabaab, which is a militant group based in East Africa with links to Al-Qaeda. He was handed over to the British embassy and deported from Kenya back to the UK, and fucking unbelievably, he wasn't charged in any way. The official statement from the force being, a British national was arrested in Kenya in 2010 and was given consular assistance. I'll come back to Adebayo shortly, but we need to introduce scumbag number 2, Michael Adebolawi. Well, we don't know as much about this scumbag. Adebolawi, as we know about as we do know about scumbag number 1. What we do know, however, is he was the younger of the 2 men, and it was publicly reported that the 2 Michaels had met at Greenwich University. But following the attack in Woolwich, we found out that Adebolawi had never attended Greenwich Uni. Adebolawi was also born to a Christian family, but sadly, by the age of 16, he'd found a new family and was running with a South London gang dealing drugs. In a drug deal gone wrong, Adebolawi saw a friend of his killed, and it was this experience that saw him convert to Islam. And having seen what he believed was the Western world getting what it deserved, which I took as him thinking that some of the terror attacks happening in the Western world were justifiable. It's believed that that's when he started to radicalize his thoughts. Sometime around 2010, the Scumbag 1 and Scumbag 2 got together and started plotting together in private, whilst in public working on prayer stalls in and around Woolwich. We'll skip forward at this point to May the 21st, 2013, and the 2 Michaels are recorded as visiting an Argos in Lewisham and buying a 5-piece kitchen knife set and a knife sharpener. Fucking Argos, the shiny catalogue shop. The following day, Lee Rigby The following day, May 22nd, 2013, saw Lee making his way from his barracks in Woolwich to his duties at the Tower of London. He was under no impression that this was, in fact, the last time he would do that. Adebayo and Adebolawi leave their house in Lewisham in a Vauxhall Tigra that would soon be turned into a weapon. They set off towards Woolwich at around 1 p.m, and it was only about a 30-minute journey to get them to the area of the Royal Artillery Barracks at the Tower of London, where Lee was stationed. The pair were seen travelling along Wellington Street at about 1:30 p.m, and 40 minutes later, Lee Rigby is seen wearing his army-issue backpack and his Help for Heroes hoodie as he comes out of Woolwich DLR station, and he sets off across the road, away from the barracks, towards a shop. Adebayo and Adebolawi had been parked up at this point in their Vauxhall Tigra, and they see Lee crossing the road. They acknowledge him as a soldier, and at this point they start up the car and aim it directly at the unsuspecting soldier. At 2:18 p.m, they hit Lee somewhere between 30 and 40 miles per hour, knocking him to the ground on the pavement. The scumbags jump out of the car and attack the motionless Lee on the ground with knives they had bought the day before and a meat cleaver. They also have on them a revolver that turns out later to be an antique. Adebayo at this point even tries to decapitate Lee. They then drag Lee into the middle of the road, and now you can imagine, as such is the way of the world, that all of this is being caught on mobile phones from every direction. However, I would like to highlight one of the onlookers here. Ingrid Lua Kennett, who is a Cub Scout leader, mother of 2, witnessed what had happened, and she jumps off the bus that she was travelling on with the aim of giving Lee first aid. When she discovers that sadly it's too late to help Lee, she engages with the Adebayo, and he starts up a conversation with him, trying to stop the attack going any further. This woman, in my eyes, is a hero. There were several other passers-by who tried to help Lee, standing over his body to protect him. Adebolajo does say to one of these passers-by who was recording a video that if you really want to find, it's not that difficult to find, but I won't be playing it in any way. So this is an excerpt, however, from the transcription that the Daily Telegraph did. The only reason we have killed this man today is because Muslims are dying daily by British soldiers. And this British soldier is one. By Allah we swear, by the Almighty Allah, we will never stop fighting you until you leave us alone. So what if we want to live by the Sharia in Muslim lands? What does that mean? You must follow us and chase us and call us extremists and kill us. When you drop a bomb, do you think it hits one person? Or rather, your bomb wipes out a whole family? Through many passages in the Quran, we must fight them as they fight us. I apologize that women had to witness this today, but in our lands, women have to see the same. You people will never be safe. Remove your governments. They don't care about you. You think David Cameron is going to get caught in the street when we're going to start busting our guns? Do you think politicians are going to die? No, it's going to be the average guy like you and your children. Get rid of them. Tell them to bring our troops back and leave our lands, and you will be left in peace. Absolute bollocks. Nothing justifies what they did. And as we'll find out from the denunciation of them from Muslim clerics across the land, that is not what the Quran says. Adebolajo also hands a written note to a witness that basically explains their actions and is amounting to the same nonsense as before, basically trying to justify the actions the two of them have just taken. Dickhead. The initial attack with the car had taken place at 2:18, and the first 999 emergency call to the police was received at 20 minutes past 2, with the first wave of officers arriving at the scene at 2:29 p.m. These first officers were unarmed and set up a cordon, which they and the public kept behind, in what I imagine was possibly the 5 longest minutes ever. They stood there waiting for the armed response team to turn up, and they arrived at 2:34 p.m. Adebolajo and Adebolawi had obviously been waiting for armed response, and with their arrival, the two men brandishing knives, meat cleavers, and the revolver charged the armed police. My guess being that they wished to be killed in some kind of stupid martyrdom pish, but that wasn't going to happen. The police fired 8 shots, dropping both men to the ground, wounded. The police administered first aid to stabilise them until paramedics could get the men into a back of an ambulance and off to the hospital. It is later revealed that as he charged at the police, Adebolawi pointed the gun at them, who opened fire and shot off one of his thumbs. From the scene, the police recover the revolver, which turns out to be a 90-year-old Dutch 9.4mm that was not loaded. They also find 8 knives, including the set bought at Argos the previous day. Lee Rigby is formally pronounced dead at this point. The two men were taken to separate hospitals where once they'd recovered, they were arrested. It turns out that both men had been known to British security services, which we already know Adebolajo was due to his arrest in Kenya. At this point, an investigation is obviously launched into the attack. And only 24 hours later, on the 23rd of May, a man aged 29 and 2 women aged 31 and 29 were arrested on suspicion of conspiracy to murder. Over the following 3 days, another 5 men and women are arrested, with 6 being released on bail and 2 being released without charge. The first appearance in court for the 2 men was on the 27th of September 2013, with them appearing via video link to the Old Bailey, where they are charged with the murder of Fusilier Lee Rigby. To which, unbelievably, the pair pled not guilty, despite being on video saying that they did it. I mean, I don't know. Obviously, they were found guilty by Mr. Justice Sweeney, who postponed sentencing to await a ruling on using whole life terms on the pair. That ruling was granted and used on Adebolajo, with Adebolawi receiving a minimum 45-year term. We side note here that less than 100 full-time life terms have been handed out since their installation in the early 1980s, and some of them have obviously been overturned since, and some of them have died in prison, leaving less than 80 people in UK jails serving real life terms. I mean, that in itself is a debate for another day. During sentencing, the pair were not in the courtroom because they'd kicked off in the secure holding area after Justice Sweeney said they were a betrayal to Islam. They were removed after shouting, "That's a lie," and Adebolajo shouting, "Allahu Akbar." They were dragged from the courtroom by security staff. Adebolajo appealed against his whole life term in April 2014, but it was refused, and appeal judges looked at it and turned it down, rightfully so. Both men again appealed later that year, but were both basically told to jog on. Your sentences stay. So they will both be there, Adebolajo for the rest of his days, and Adebolajo until at least 2058, when he'll be in his late 60s. Sadly, after the attack, there was an upshot in anti-Islam attacks in London, including several mosques being attacked, one even the night after the murder, using a grenade in a mosque. As I said before, majority, if not all, of Muslim clinics and Muslim leaders denounced the attack, saying that they were not what Islam represented. David Cameron, Prime Minister at the time, used the words of Ingrid Lua Kennett, who was the woman that got off the bus. When addressing the nation, he said, "They wanted to start a war in London." And Ingrid replied, "You're going to lose. It is you against many." And she speaks for all of us. In 2018, Adebolajo said he regretted the attack and wanted to apologise for his actions, claiming that he had misunderstood the Quran and he'd been brainwashed at the time. Lynn Rigby, Lee's mother, did not accept that apology, saying she would never forgive them. Good. Lynn did set up a charity after the attack, which was the Lee Rigby Foundation, and it provides a support network for bereaved military families, veterans' families, and serving military families, and be inclusive of recent terrorist attacks. They're basically there to help people who have had a bereavement of people who were in the armed forces. Lee received a full military service that was attended by the Prime Minister and thousands of mourners. After the service, his coffin was driven down roads that were lined specifically as a safe route by thousands of members of the public mourning with the family. The night before the funeral, Lee had received a 32-man guard vigil by members of the Royal Regiment of Fusiliers. And when the family arrived at the church for the service, they were greeted with applause by the thousands that had gathered outside. So that is the incredibly sad story of drummer Lee Rigby, attacked on the streets of London for going about his day by two men who did not represent Islam, who were just two total cockwombles. I hope that covers drummers. I know it's not quite drumsticks, but as I said in the beginning, when you stick any variation of UK crime and drummers into the old search web, that is obviously the first thing that comes up. And actually, I quite enjoyed doing the research and the reading for it. It's enjoys maybe not the right word there, but like I say, it was one that most of us will remember in living memory, and it was something that I probably didn't know as much about as I should have. So that there is my version of the story of that day. As I said at the beginning, for the next wee while, I'll not be doing the challenges and replies as there's too much going on here, but I will endeavour to bring you some Bob's Twisted Tales for as long as I possibly can do. So Warren and Kate, I hope that was something either you'd not heard of or something that expanded on what you knew about it, and that it met your challenge. And to those of you listening, thank you very much, as always, for listening. It's an absolute pleasure to see people download and listen to this. So if you have enjoyed it, please do, if you find time to do so, leave a rating and a review wherever you download this. And if you want to join us on social media, please do. You find me at Twisted Britain on all of the socials and Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. Just search for Twisted Britain. There's also the Twisted Britain discussion group on Facebook, which you'll find by searching for Twisted Britain discussion group, which you can join a ever-growing band of lovely twisted people. I leave you this evening, as I always will do, by saying thank you, love you, bye.
Thank you, love you, bye.